My name's Jeff Brown, and I'm essentially responsible for everything to do with the MLI that is not associated with the content of the program. So Paul Billiken is going to be talking primarily about the content of the program, and I'll be talking about everything outside the content of the program. So what are we going to be talking you through today? I'll introduce you to Paul Billiken, the inimitable Paul Billiken, who heads up the MLI faculty and who came up with this idea in the first place. We'll talk about the MLI and why and how it's beneficial to you. It is accredited. We also have a number of important partnerships with organizations that I'm sure you'll have heard of. We'll talk about the incredible MLI faculty. I'll go into a little bit of detail on the faculty members. Candidate profiles, really important to determine whether or not you're suitable for the MLI program. We'll take you through the MLI syllabus. It's quite a detailed breakdown of the syllabus, including the MLI primers. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll talk about the MLI alumni, the study partner program for those of you who enjoy studying with others, and we'll talk about the help desk as well. And then we'll conclude with a Q&A session, an open Q&A session at the end. So who is this man, Paul Billiken? Well, he's a very bright spark. He was educated at Oxford and Imperial. He's spent the majority of his professional career working in the financial services sector. He started off as a quant, and then he transitioned to become a quant trader, and then moved up to director level, and then created his own company as well, called Thalessians. He's the founder of Thalessians, which is a very well-known organization with an enormous number of events organized during the course of each year. And it's an AI company with literally thousands of LinkedIn followers. He's also a professor and lecturer of maths for computer science at Imperial College. So he's done quite a lot. He's also devised this MLI program and the people who teach on this program. So what is this all about? The MLI it's an 8-month program. It was, to begin with, a 6-month program, but we move along with the times, and technologically speaking, especially insofar as machine learning is concerned, since the MLI's inception, a lot has happened in this space. So we've just found that it's, grown from 6 months to 8 months in the space of just a few years, in order that we keep up to date with all the changes taking place in this space. The program is comprised of 2 levels, level 1, level 2. There are 5 MLI primers that you go through prior to starting the program. The program consists of 8 modules. On average, each module lasts 1 month, but they do vary quite a lot, actually, according to insofar as how much time, what the duration of each module is concerned. There are 32 lecture weeks. It's incredibly practical. The whole program is very practical. The assignments are practical. The final exam isn't so practical. That's an exam. So, by its own definition, an exam is not as practical as, for example, the final project, which is literally where you put everything that you've learned, you apply everything that you've learned on the program. And it's an incredible opportunity, actually, in the final project. The MLI can be taken from anywhere around the world, similar to many programs nowadays. And the MLI faculty is literally world renowned. A lot of the MLI faculty, I'll go into a little bit more detail about that in a second. They are practitioners and they are all specialists in the field of machine learning, data science, and artificial intelligence. Candidates work with hands-on assignments designed to illustrate the algorithms studied and to experience firsthand the practical challenges involved in the design and successful implementation of machine learning models. That's really what this is about. Again, incredibly practical. This was designed to be practical. It's a professional qualification. This is not an academic qualification. It's not a master's. This is for people who are working in the machine learning space or want to work in the machine learning space in various different sectors. The benefits are that it is very well known. So you get MLI after your name once you complete the program. It's a graduate level professional qualification. I have to emphasize that again. And there is an individual commitment to career development. And I'll touch on this in a little bit more detail towards the end of the presentation. Again, 8 months streamed live over the internet. Very, very practical, developed and taught by highly experienced practitioners and academics. So it's a combination of the two. The faculty is led by Paul, and the lifelong learning lectures, the lifelong learning elements of this program are very important. First and foremost, once you're enrolled onto this program, you have access to all future MLI programs. So anything new that is added to the program, you will have access to those lectures as well in perpetuity for the rest of your careers. We're hoping that it doesn't stray too far beyond 8 months. And there are some topics that we've removed from the syllabus because they've become far less relevant, applicable, and helpful even than some of the newer topics that we've added to the program. And this will continue happening. We review the MLI syllabus very regularly in order to make sure that it remains topical. So it is CPD certified. I think something in the region of 300 CPD certified hours. You should all know who NTT Data is and NAG, in particular the NAG library. These are who the organizations that we are associated with. Thylesians, the organization that, well, the brainchild of Paul himself, an extraordinary organization with some incredible events. The members, there's literally thousands of members of Thylesians. Some of those members are extremely well known as well. So introducing the world-renowned MLI faculty. Who heads it up? Paul heads it up. And he is incredibly ably assisted by Ivan Zdankin, who is an extraordinarily eloquent lecturer as well, as are all the other members of faculty. You should recognize some of these names. Francesca Lazzari, who works for Microsoft, is extremely well known around the world in this space. Matthew Dixon, the current quant of the year. Blanca Horvath, who in 2020 was voted Rising Star in Quant Finance. She's no longer a rising star. She's a star in her own right. And incidentally, just to emphasize also that, you know, these lecturers have chosen to teach on this program. They're all extremely busy with their professional careers. And there are specific reasons as to why they've chosen to teach on this program. They all have their own reasons for it. My opinion, I joined in September, and from what I can gather, the principal reason that they've chosen this program to teach on is because it is so applied. And by that, I mean that by the end of the program, the outcomes are that you will have an ability with machine learning techniques that not many other people will have. And so everything that you learn on this program is geared towards applying those techniques in the workplace. And I think that that's the main reason why these people have chosen to join the MLI program. It does have a global profile. The majority of students reside outside the UK. It's become a global profile in the last couple of years in particular, and students come from over 60 countries worldwide. The candidate profiles are incredibly important because the last thing that we want is for you to enroll onto this program only to find that it kind of goes over your head, or that you're not able to follow some of the concepts delivered on this program. And it's really, it's partly our responsibility to ensure that doesn't happen. So I'm going to read through these because I think that it is important. The professional profiles that we're looking for are quant analysts, IT specialists, quant traders, those working in insurance, those working in model validation, in risk managers, equity traders, or high frequency traders. So that's the professional profiles that we're looking for. The academic profiles that we're looking for is fairly obvious, really: computing, maths, physics, banking and finance, and engineering. And what I would suggest is that if you don't fit into any of these profiles, then we will definitely need to talk to you as to whether this program is suitable for you. To be frank, the vast majority of people who apply for this program, they do fit into these profiles very clearly, actually. But just in case you don't, we will need to talk to you to determine whether or not you're suitable. These are some of the organizations from whom people enroll onto the program. There are plenty of others. There are some actually, very big organizations within financial services, in particular some of the investment banks, who also enroll their employees onto this program. And some of them were just simply not allowed to put their names on this document. But these are some of the organizations anyway, which is pretty impressive. So what is the journey? Well, it starts this evening, this open evening, this information session, where we're going to talk about the course. We're going to break down the syllabus of the program. This session is also recorded, so if you do want to watch it again, that will be made available to everyone attending the session. You then apply if you do want to enroll onto the program. You submit your application form, or you send me an email and ask me for the registration form. I'll send it to you. It is a very, very simple and short form, partly because everyone's extremely busy working, and we wanted to make sure that this was extremely easy to fill in. We will come back to you within 3 working days. It's not too long until the start of the program. The 18th of April is when the program starts. So now, normally, once you submit your registration form, it's normally within a day that we get back to you, because there's less than a month to go till the start of the program. You then do the MLI primers, which Paul will take you through very shortly, and then you receive your course materials, and then you start the program. 8 modules of varying length. Talked about this already. Lectures, they're streamed all around the world. There's an online test at the end of each module, a final unseen written at the end of module 8, written exam, apologies, at the end of module 8. And then the icing on the cake is the final project, which is literally applying everything that you've learned on the program, combining it all into the final project. I'll come back to you to talk about alumni a little bit later, and the help desk as well. And in the meantime, I'll hand you over to Paul himself.
Thank you very much, Jeff. So thank you very much for this excellent introduction. Let me first start by addressing the questions that I see in the chat. There is a question from Taiwo. Is it fair to say that the IT, to say that the IT profile includes data science and data engineering, absolutely. So I would say these are nowadays core areas within IT. If you do regard them as IT, because it depends on how you classify them, but quite often they are regarded as IT. They could also be regarded as functions in the front office, right? But I think it depends on really how you interpret IT in this context. So indeed, we have and you guys you will certainly be aware of the revolution that is taking place in AI. So if a few years ago, when we start really talking about this, AI in finance was, perhaps an overstatement, right? So now we should probably actually call it AI rather than ML, because I think AI is definitely here, right? And the stuff that we teach you as part of this program will help you build AI, right? So I know this sounds like scary, right? Because it didn't sound as scary before. Now that you have ChatGPT 4 and you have similar tools, the intelligence of these tools is really incredible. So we are facing, I would say, a significant revolution in the capabilities that are offered by these tools. So I'm actually, I'm telling you about this, and I'm genuinely scared of the power of these tools that we're actually teaching. So we want to ensure that we are teaching them to very good and very capable people. I think that's something that we absolutely want to ensure. But let me tell you a little bit more about how we deliver this program. We deliver live lectures, so you can join them live, meaning they may be in person or they may be remote. That depends on the location of the lecturer. Some of our lecturers are located in the United States. Some of them are in London, in Europe, and so on. And of course, we have communities all around the world. Right? We have communities in Asia. So we also record these lectures, and you can watch them after the lecture. If you have, for whatever reason, missed the lecture, you can access the lecture in the portal. We do assignments, so you will have to do the assignments as part of this program. You will have to do some work, independent work, to basically apply your knowledge. And there is emphasis on real world exercises and case studies. And there is a project that you have to do as part of your program. And in addition to everything that is included in this program, we also invite you to ad hoc webinars that we give on groundbreaking areas of AI and ML within finance and beyond. There is a number of primers. So those are kind of longer, rather than just being, just an evening lecture, something that you do after work. You would probably have to spend entire days doing those primers, right? So there is Mathematics for Machine Learning, where we introduce you to the basic mathematical background that you need to understand machine learning. And that includes things like calculus, linear algebra, elements of analytic geometry, matrix decompositions, vector calculus, probability distributions, and continuous optimization. Then there is, so that is mathematical background. You don't absolutely have to be a master of these techniques, because nowadays I think there is a move towards making AI a little bit more commoditized, so you don't necessarily have to reason mathematically about everything that you do, unless you want to develop new AI and machine learning techniques. In that case, you probably have to use these mathematical tools, right? So you need to know them at some level, but you need to have a general grasp of these tools, not necessarily overdoing it. We're not really training you to become academic mathematicians, right? We are training you to become practitioners. So I wouldn't really describe this as an academic course. This is something that you do to become practitioners, right? This is different. Some of you may be, many of our lecturers, myself included, we also do academic work, but there is not as much emphasis on academic work in this course. We want you to become practitioners. We want you to be able to derive practical results, and that's the main emphasis of this course. And of course, finance is the main area of application. So after we have considered mathematical tools, we start looking at financial derivatives and risk. And when you think about financial derivatives, you think about futures options. There are vanilla options, there are some more complex products, and and how to price these things. So there is the classical Black-Scholes framework, but there are more involved models such as Heston, for example. And again, we're not really aiming to make this an option pricing course. This is an MLAI course. We are doing some option pricing. And if this is what you work on in your day-to-day work, you will be perhaps doing option, you will be applying this to option pricing. There are some amazing results that MLAI has yielded in option pricing and in financial derivatives in general. For instance, instead of having this really idealized framework of Black-Scholes, Merton, you can move towards using reinforcement learning, which is much more realistic, and you can price and hedge derivatives under frictions. Then there is the notion of risk, which is vital to understand as well, things like value at risk and expected shortfall. That is something that we also teach as part of this course. So we introduce you to risk, and then we show you how to use some tools, such as QuantLib, for example. Another area of application within finance that uses this stuff is algorithmic trading. So we talk about algorithmic trading in a separate primer. So we talk about how to build trading strategies, how to do backtesting, what kind of data you encounter in algorithmic trading, how to deal with open, high, low, close volume data, and how to deal with order books, how the microstructure of financial markets works. We introduce you to some basic portfolio management, optimal execution, and cryptocurrency trading. So we cover quite a lot of ideas from algorithmic trading. In order to be able to apply this stuff, you need to be able to code. So the next primer, and I believe it's a full-day primer, is on Python. So we teach you a bit of programming. So in case programming is your thing, then you may actually do the sister course, which is Quantitative Developer Certificate. If you really want to get into programming, if you really want to learn more than Python, but perhaps C++, also databases, KDB. So for that, you can take QDC, Quantitative Developer Certificate, but you can also learn some Python on this course, and we will teach you just enough Python to be able to do machine learning. And there is a second primer which focuses on advanced Python techniques, which takes you beyond the basics, teaches you how to optimize your Python code and do very non-trivial things in Python, vectorizing your code and doing a lot of very, very interesting stuff, including using the NAG numerical library and many other things. So then we move on, and we basically have a number of modules, each consisting of a number of lectures. So we have module 1 on supervised learning. So maybe before I really drill into the individual lectures, let me just give you a feel for the overall structure of the program. So the first batch of lectures, which take place at 6:30 on Tuesdays, is on supervised learning. The next one is on deep learning and neural nets. Then we have unsupervised learning and alternative data. Then we have practitioners' approach to machine learning, various practicalities. Then we have a module on reinforcement learning. Then we have a module on time series. And then we look at natural language processing and generative deep learning. So, and finally, we conclude with quantum machine learning. Okay, so let me perhaps go back and now tell you a little bit more about what each of these is. So we start with supervised learning, which is basically you try to work out the relationship between the inputs and the outputs. You can think of linear regression as a basic machine learning technique, only it's limited. It only allows you to fit linear functions. Then we look at ensemble methods, which are very, very powerful in finance and on tabular data, such as boosting, but many other methods as well. Then we have things like kernel methods. So kernel methods, very powerful, very important in quantum machine learning, and very important theoretically for you to be able to reason about these methods. There is an entire family of methods called Bayesian methods, and we introduce you to them as well in this fourth lecture, an introduction to Bayesian modeling. The second module is focused on neural networks. So we dive into neural networks. We'll look at perceptrons first. We'll look at the theory of perceptrons. Then we'll learn how to train neural networks through backpropagation, right? And we'll learn various tricks such as regularization. How do we get the neural network to really learn what we want it to learn? Okay. Then we'll look at existing applications of neural networks within finance. And one of those applications is deep learning volatility, which is how do we replace this classical mathematical framework in derivatives pricing with a more powerful approach based on neural networks. And that is what we're going to consider there. So Blanca Horvath, one of the inventors of deep learning volatility, will be giving that lecture. Unsupervised learning is about how do I, given some data, how do I uncover its structure? How do I uncover its latent structure? How do I actually find relationships in this data? And then we look at a number of techniques: dimensionality reduction, clustering, PCA, and autoencoders. And another big area nowadays is, okay, how can I use alternative data so I can build a strategy using satellite images, for instance, to predict where economy is going to go, right? And this is something that we weren't able to do before. I don't know, we can use images from drones or something like that. We can just use, internet logs or social media, right? So all this goes under the heading of alternative data, and Saeed Aman, who is one of the key thinkers in the area of alternative data, will introduce that to you. After that, we go to module 4, which is practitioner's approach. And this is all about how do we make our machine learning reproducible? How do we scale it up, right? How do we make sure that we can do machine learning at scale? How can we automate this? How do we work with hardware, right? Can we use GPUs, for example, to speed up the training of neural nets? So how do we engineer features? So, a lot of the alpha generation that we have in trading can be thought of as feature generation or feature engineering. There are recent techniques such as differential machine learning that allow you to take this a step further in the financial context. After that, reinforcement learning, which has made headlines when machine learning algorithms manage to outcompete humans at the game of Go, one of the most complex games in existence. And so we look into reinforcement learning in quite a lot of detail. We have an entire module dedicated to reinforcement learning, which is a big thing. And we'll look at how to use reinforcement learning to make markets, to optimally execute orders, to manage wealth. Okay, so we have this deep dive into reinforcement learning in module 5. Time series, most of the data that you encounter in finance is in the form of time series. And Francesca Lazzari, who's an expert on time series, will introduce you to this, right? So this is, she has done a lot of work on time series modeling using machine learning, and this is what you encounter in this module 6. Now, this is nowadays huge because obviously this is ChatGPT, right? So a lot of the new stuff that comes out of OpenAI is about natural language processing, but not just that, but also about generative deep learning. So how can you generate text? How can you effectively mimic what the human mind is doing? How do you create new models? How do you do creativity? And this is what we consider in this module, which is, you can think ChatGPT. It's all about natural language processing, transformers, and generative machine learning. So this module will tell you how to do this. And the next module is really about the future. How do we use quantum computers for machine learning? How do we do quantum machine learning? So an expert in quantum machine learning who recently wrote a book on quantum machine learning, Antoine Jacquier, will introduce you to quantum machine learning and how to achieve this quantum advantage, how to beat what the current machine learning algorithms can do using quantum computers. Okay, so this is, if you like, a look into the future. So I think I have introduced this in a few words. Now, again, if you have questions, you are welcome to ask me. But now over to Jeff.
Thank you very much, Paul. An explanation of the syllabus. Incidentally, if any questions pop up, in the coming days and weeks, then feel free to get in touch with me. You should all have my contact details, so my phone number and my email address. In the meantime, feel free to get in touch with MLI alumni, either from your organization or your region or those working in similar roles. I joined this organization in September, and I made it my priority it was a campaign really, to get in touch with every person who has completed the program. And that journey itself was absolutely invigorating, because the feedback was relentlessly positive and almost unanimously incredible words about the program. So this was working for a product with that kind of feedback was immense, thoroughly enjoyable. So feel free to get in touch with alumni. Somebody has, so hold on one second. I think we've got a question here from Urs. Do the lectures you just presented contain Python lab seminars, Paul?
I'm just sort of trying to understand. So by Python lab, do you mean Jupyter lab? Do we use Jupyter labs? Do we use Jupyter notebooks? Is that the question? So when you say Python lab, I mean, what do you mean? So there is a lot of Python, and there are lots of Python notebooks that we cover in those lecture Jupyter notebooks. There are numerous practical Python exercises. You start those Python exercises during the primer, which is built, if you like, on exercises. So we really get you to do Python. But yes, I mean, there is a ton of practical Python stuff throughout the course.
Superb. Okay. Study partner program. So this is really, I think this is really critical, actually, because it is quite an intense program, and most of you probably have full-time jobs. So you'll need to not only structure your studies, which we will help you with prior to you starting the program. This is very important, that you're able to structure, to have a timetable, a full-blown timetable during the course of pretty much the whole program, and we can help you with that, so that you're able to combine your work life with your personal life, especially if you've got families, with the MLI. So it's a long program, and we want you to complete the program. This is very important for us. So you can opt to study with others as well. So you let me know if you'd like to do that. If you'd like to study with somebody, for example, from your region, we'll put you guys in touch, and that way you can tackle some of the challenges on this program together. And for those of you who want to and prefer to study on your own, that's fine as well. Either or, basically. And the help desk and the faculty support it has to be on point, and it is, because this is, we have lectures every week, so we don't want to keep you waiting if there's something that particular topic area you're struggling to follow or struggling to understand. We want to make sure your understanding is complete. So as soon as you come through to us with any queries, then a faculty member will help you as much as possible. The MLI Employment Service is very comprehensive, and please bear in mind, this service is for self-funded applicants only. So if you're sponsored by your company to go through this program, whether fully sponsored or partially sponsored or 1% sponsored, we can't and we won't help you with any employment opportunities for obvious reasons. But if you are self-funded, then we can help you and we will help you. And this is a result of all the contacts that we have in this space. There's a lot of them. And you know, not just faculty contacts, but MLI alumni contacts as well. And our objective is to get you interviews. That's the objective. And then when it comes to when you do get an interview, it is then also our responsibility to maximize your chances at that interview. And it's worth bearing in mind that in this day and age, for every single job in this space, you know, you only have to look at LinkedIn. If you go job searching in LinkedIn for machine learning jobs, you'll see how many applicants there are for each role. It can be well over 100 sometimes. So getting the interview is the most important part, but then you need to get yourself ahead of the queue. If they're interviewing 5 candidates, you need to be ahead of the game. And so we help you as much as possible to do as much research and reading as possible, not just looking at the job spec, but also finding out how the job, how the role fits into the team, what the team's function is within the organization, what the organization's objectives are, what their strategies are to meet those objectives, what the team does towards helping with those strategies and objectives, you know, as much as possible. And if that includes, by the way, contacting, if it's a big organization, contact 1 or 2 employees within the organization. That's the way to get ahead. It's so competitive nowadays. So we help you to do that as much as possible. And the more you'll find, the more research you do on the organization, the more questions pop up that you need to ask at the interview. And as you're going through the interview, you'll be able to respond a lot more spontaneously and all of that sort of stuff. So we help as much as possible with that. It's part of the service. Okay, there's no additional cost to this. It's just, we think, you know, merited. And by the time you finish the program, you should be at an advantageous position in comparison to the other people being interviewed anyway. In terms of the knowledge and the skill set that you'll acquire, you should be at a distinct advantage anyway. Okay. Thank you for your patience and any questions. Okay, so we've got some questions. The first question, how would you consider the workload of the MLI compared against the CQF program or similar? So I was part of the CQF program for almost a decade. I think it's quite similar, but here's the thing. You know, you can say there are, let's say, on average, 10 to 12 hours that you need to commit each week to the MLI or the CQF. Okay, and that's what is said actually on the CQF. But my philosophy is this. First of all, it varies enormously from one individual to another, how much that workload is. And secondly, the more work you put into this, and I know this goes without saying, but it has to be emphasized anyway, the more work you put into this, the more you'll learn, the more comfortable you'll be with all the techniques of machine learning, and the more rounded you'll be. And by the end of the program, you should be incredibly confident with all the different techniques used here. So my philosophy is just work as much as you possibly can towards this. You know, that whatever time you have available in between your job and your family life, dedicate to the MLI. Just dedicate it to the MLI. So I hope the workload is quite intense. Make it as intense as you possibly can. And that's really that would really be my answer to this question. You can make it, you know, if you're an incredible, it's like let's say a really talented pianist who goes through a piano course, at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. And, you know, they might be far more talented than anybody else on the course. So they might not have as much of the workload. But if they did work hard anyway, Cristiano Ronaldo is an example of somebody who has extraordinary talent in football and works his socks off, and so he's the best. And I think with machine learning, with anything obviously in life, it's the same thing. The more work you put into it, the better. It's my long-winded answer to your question. I'm sorry, but I hope that's kind of sufficient for you, Urs. Any more questions?
Can be quite technical, your questions. So, any questions?
And if any questions, here we go. Okay, does the program start next week? No, it starts on the 18th of April. So I think if you do want to enroll, then it's worth doing so fairly soon so that you can have access to the MLI primers. This isn't critical, by the way. The MLI primers are very important, but what I'm saying is the timing isn't critical. So if, for example, you're looking for sponsorship internally, and that takes time, obviously, to get approval, don't worry. So the MLI primers, if you want, you can do the MLI primers, you know, one day before the start of the program. And don't forget that there are recording. Each lecture of the MLI program is recorded, so you can catch up with the recordings as well. I saw the brochure saying next week the primers are starting. Paul. The MLI primers. Do candidates have access to the MLI primers the moment they enroll, or are there lectures that they need to follow starting next week? Can you hear me, Paul?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
So are the MLI primers lectures that take place before the start of the program, in other words, next week, or once they enroll, do they have access to recordings of the MLI primers?
So they do actually start next week. Yeah.
Brilliant. And those lectures are recorded. So if you miss the primers, then you can watch the recordings of those primers. And again, you have access to faculty support as well.
Hi, Paul. Sorry, I'm just going to ask a question. I'm unmuting myself. I'm just going to ask a question because it's a bit technical. But could you just give us an example of some of the case studies that we could do? Because I bought your textbook in 2021 during my master's. So quite familiar, with all this machine learning content, you can just read textbooks and learn stuff. But the real benefit of this course is the faculty and the real world applications. So could you just give us an example of something let's say recurrent neural networks Bueller and them, they did deep hedging, and that's applied to incomplete markets. So that's a really useful thing. But could you just give us an example of some case studies? Because I think that's the main benefit of doing this course over just self-studying the content.
Yeah, so I think it's a good idea to look at the publications of what people actually do with this stuff. So if you go on Google Scholar, for example, right, you will see what is being published in this. And you can look up some faculty members so you can see what people are doing. But there are several things that people are, kind of already using this for. It's, for example, deep hedging. So using neural networks to hedge options, optimal order placement, alpha generation, trading strategies. And there is a large number of different things that people are doing with this. So, for example, using alternative data, for example, non-tabular data to generate alpha.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that. So I don't want to take too much time, but I think you've given me like a decent understanding. So, like, I don't know, like Antoine Savine's like one of the faculty members. So, like, if he comes and he talks about differential machine learning and applications, it's more like almost like the access to these guys, and like Saeed, I think he did alternative data, so that kind of stuff. So it's just more like the access to the faculty members, and because I mean, like you said, if I just download, like I've read Savine's paper, I've read some textbooks. But the real benefits, I'm just trying to see, would it be like access to the lecturers or just working with them?
I think it's a very different thing when, someone like Antoine Savine actually explains to you how differential machine learning works to just reading a paper, right? Because, I mean, he can really go into detail. You can ask him questions during the lecture, and, it's not something that you would be able to do without having access to him, So I think it does make a huge amount of difference, right? It's not something that you can gain access to like that easily, right? So by just looking at a paper or a book, because there can be a real knowledge transfer as part of this process, and it's not something that is that easy to get, I think, without sort of direct communication with the author, with the lecturer.
Thanks for this. I really appreciate your comments, and also your book is quite nice. You, Hopperin, and Dixon, I really appreciate putting that out,
Thanks
putting
a
that
lot.
stuff out there.
So Antoine and I are about to, we're pretty much finished another one. We haven't published it yet, but there is a third co-author from JP Morgan. So we are about to publish another book.
Will that be added to the list of books that are available, Paul?
Yes, yeah, I think so. I mean, I have just reviewed 2 new books, very interesting, reviews, and yeah, we are about to publish another one.
Okay.
So happy to take any further questions. All right, if there are no further questions, then
We can call it a day. So, as I say, if any questions pop up after this event, then feel free to get in touch with me. My email address is there. You should have also received an email from me with my telephone number, so feel free to call me if you need me to call you back. I'm very happy to do that as well. And I hope this has proven useful and informative, and have a great rest of the day, everybody, and hopefully talk to you soon.
talk to you soon.